Hello, everyone, and welcome to our LinkedIn Live, where we're going to have a discussion today with Theresa Rowsell about the Women-Led Impact Investor Challenge and her experience as an investor. Our agenda for today is going to we're going to have a chance to do a one-on-one interview here with Theresa. And then we're going to go into some time for Q&A. So please feel free to put your questions into the chat. We'll have a chance to answer those. And then we'll have a chance to do a walkthrough of the program overview. So you can learn a little bit more about what it's like to participate in the Women-Led Impact Investor Challenge. And so with that, excited to welcome Theresa here. And so Theresa, to kick us off, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your journey as an investor?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I guess my journey started about 6 years ago. I started out with just one investment. It was very early on. I had experience with the founder that I was investing in. I knew them very well. Admittedly, I sort of jumped into it because I believed in the person and I really understood their business just because of my career background. Prior to that, I always thought that investing was really reserved for high net worth individuals. And so once I realized that that wasn't the case, I started to get curious about investing. So I participated in an early prototype through the Foundations of Investing through Future Capital. It was targeted at women. And that curiosity really just turned into some inspiration to not only invest, but to be intentional about where I would invest and really wanting to use my investments to help change the narrative around generational wealth. So I started to learn and build community. Specifically, I took an interest in impact investing, and I had some great experience and skills for my career that turned out to lend themselves well to investment. And now I've managed to curate a small portfolio for myself, and most recently started investing with some smaller groups where I share values and we work together on investing.
Thank you so much. And so I'm curious, what influenced your decision to join the Women-Led Impact Investor Challenge?
Well, first of all, I really enjoyed the experience I had with Future Capital a few years prior. I had met with Carolyn from Spring. It was something unrelated to the challenge, but she happened to share her personal experience having just completed it herself. That intrigued me about the program. And so when I looked into it further, I really liked the accessibility of the program. And it was a big reason that I wanted to support the Spring program, because it really expanded the reach of who could afford to participate. And that aligns with my personal ethos around changing the dynamics of who's investing and who's receiving investment, as well as I was just very interested in wanting to invest in women-led businesses. Not to mention that the type of, I'm the type of person that learns by doing. So being in a sort of a classroom style setting with a real investment going to be happening at the end was something that was kind of a perfect setup for me.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the real differences in the program is I think especially with due diligence, you could talk about theory forever and not really know what happens, to get that term sheet over the line. And I feel like that having facilitated the program and having had a chance to work with that incredible cohort, it was really amazing to watch that process of like figuring out who was going to be the winner and building the trust through that due diligence process. So I'm curious for you, what were some of your highlights from the experience?
The biggest highlight for me was definitely the people that I met. And they weren't just from Vancouver, but all across Canada. There was even folks from the US as well. The people that I interacted with, they've just really enriched my network. They added amazing perspective and experience to the program itself, but it continues to enrich the community that I'm surrounding myself with. Those connections weren't just with the other investors, but it was everything from the founders, the facilitators, the guest speakers. I met a number of people who I've stayed connected to. I've explored partnerships. I've explored doing strategic advising for some of the companies that we worked with. referrals through the other investor cohort where our businesses complement each other. I've been invited to like different conversations and events that I wouldn't have been before the event. So that's probably one of the biggest highlights. But I've also learned a lot through the process. I mean, everything from deal terms to valuations.
Mhm.
I liked learning about the statistics and the facts throughout the program, and I definitely came out of it knowing more than I did going in. So I think it was a win all around.
Yeah, I find that that community-based environment, the fact that you're investing together on this journey is actually part of that applying that gender lens to the process, right? Because when you are investing by yourself, you're kind of really reliant on, say, your investment advisor or your existing network to be able to introduce you to entrepreneurs, and oftentimes those are gonna be, well, white men. And so if you are part of that cohort experience, I'm so delighted to hear that that community has continued to, as we say, pay dividends to you on your journey and connecting you with more. One of the questions that has come up is like, do you actually need to be a woman to be an investor? And while it was majority women, we had a couple really great guys in the cohort too who believed in investing in women and were excited to be deploying their capital. Even one couple, a husband and wife team, which was really exciting.
Yeah.
I'm curious for you as well. You know, when we went on that journey, there was kind of a clear organization that rose to the top, which was Light One, who
Mhm.
ended up winning. And I'm curious if you could speak more about your interaction with them, and whether that was kind of after the fact or even during the program. What was it like to like build that relationship with the founders?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I met many of the founders and built relationships with them throughout the challenge. I've met 3 or 4 of them since the program has ended, and with like several of the people who were part of the investor group as well. I've I'm so excited for Roya and Sarah and for the investment in Light One. And now I personally spent less time with them because I was split into another due diligence group. I really, really enjoyed the next level of connection that came through working with the smaller groups once we broke down into due diligence, learning together, getting to know the founder more personally. Christy from Hyon, who is an incredible founder with a great business, was the group that I was with. And I believe that there were several companies that came through the challenge that, in my opinion, were investable businesses. You really do become invested and connected through the process, regardless of the role that you play. And for me, I really chose to lean in to those connections, and so I've remained engaged with many of the people I've met, and I've since connected with Roya and Sarah since the challenge as well.
Oh, it's wonderful. And for those who are a little less familiar with the framework, essentially we start as a large cohort, and once we get down to the final 5 entrepreneurs who are going to move through the due diligence process, the investors split into these smaller due diligence breakout groups, which is what Theresa was referring to. And even though, as you shared, Theresa, you weren't in Light One's due diligence group, it sounds like you still received enough information through the process that you felt confident in the investment in Light One at the end, even though that wasn't necessarily the group that you were spending the most time with. So, you know, I think that's really important to know that like there are a lot of these companies that are super investable and really, you know, I think exciting opportunities, but because of the nature of the structure of the program, there is only one who receives that final investment. So there's a question that's popped up here from Mari of what helped you in making that decision to join the cohort? You know, you mentioned talking with Caroline, you mentioned, you know, finding that alignment. Um, but I'm curious, yeah, what was there anything in particular that made it a yes?
Well, for me, the idea of the group learning.
Mhm.
So like all of those were influences, but really what it came down to is the group learning, and the chance to learn in a live environment. Like if I were to pick one thing, it was that. I had made a couple of investments before joining the challenge. I also really appreciated that it wasn't just a spring program, but Tellus Pollinator was involved. There was a government sponsor as well in the mix, and so that lent credibility for me as well. But the group learning with other people who are at different places in their journey, I knew that was going to be a good environment for me to practice, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. And so, you mentioned it about the learning process, especially around some of the jargon and the technical terms. And I'm curious if there were um, any particular areas where you're like, oh wow, I feel like I have a new skill now, outside of this program to be able to engage in those conversations. Was there any particular area that resonated for you there?
For me, I had some career experience around mergers and acquisitions, and so doing due diligence in those situations lent itself well to due diligence in this experience, where I learned a lot. And I mean, I had a wonderful coach for our due diligence team who was very experienced. And so she helped us with the deal terms and looking at different ways that we could sort of present and negotiate deal terms. And so I had some basic knowledge going in. I had done a couple of deals, but it was learning from her in particular, and from some of the other investors in my cohort who had written different types of deals than I had exposure to. I felt that was a really valuable piece. I also enjoyed the valuation side of things as well, because with valuations there is such a wide range of ways that you can look at it. The founders are going to look at it one way, other investors are going to look at it another way, and so hearing from other perspectives I felt was also an excellent part of the program for me.
Yeah, valuations are very much an art and a science, right? Because it's, there are absolutely formulas and things like that, but ultimately it's what can both parties agree to? And that's what will make that number real. And so I was also delighted you mentioned the impact of the coach, because that is one of the important models that we use in this, is that you're not kind of expected to go it alone, that you do have an experienced coach working with your group who's not going to do the work for you, but who is there to be able to answer those questions and support you on your individual learning journey. Erin's popped up another question from the audience of how is the pitching process different from the traditional way it's done? And I'm happy to speak a little bit to like our approach in the design, right? Which is that pitching very typically is actually gender biased towards men. And there's a number of different research studies where men and women presenting the exact same company, the exact same information, will actually have a different reception from the audience just because of their gender. And part of that is because pitching traditionally advantages storytelling that's about big wins, opportunity, like what's possible in kind of the biggest terms. And oftentimes, women entrepreneurs really want to ground in reality. They're going to speak to what they genuinely see as achievable and have a great deal of confidence in how they're going to get there. And that can present them differently to the audience. And so one of the techniques that we've done is there is still a summary video that is designed to convey the information that is needed about the organization so that the investors can understand them. But we combine that with a experience around question and answers, around having actually a dialogue. We also invested in some community connection time before the pitches for entrepreneurs and investors to get to meet each other and build some of those relationships. And so, Theresa, I'm curious from your experience, what did you feel was maybe different in that process of building relationship and trust, in addition to getting the information you needed from the entrepreneurs?
So, well, first of all, going into the program, all the pitches I have ever seen were live. And so, whether that be live online or live in person. So, in this particular case, having an opportunity to look at the pitch and review it more than once was a new approach, and something that was really cool. But what I really enjoyed was after you reviewed the pitches and had a chance to absorb the content that was submitted alongside of the pitches, you were able to interact with the founders. So right out of the gate, we're building relationships in those first sessions, and then having an opportunity after you've reviewed the pitches to go and speak to the founders and ask questions, but in a group setting where other folks are also asking questions and also you're learning from how they're looking at the pitch as well. Whereas, normally I would be doing that either on my own or with maybe one other person. And so I thought that was pretty cool. Oh, I lost your audio, Avery. Oh.
So yeah, I think that aspect of being able to like hear how other people are receiving it as well, instead of just your your narrative or your assumptions, is an important part of that. One of the other questions here that I would, given your emphasis on gender lens investing, why do you believe that getting more investment into women-led companies is so important?
Well, I mean, to take a step back, I think that it's important for any underrepresented group to receive funding. I think for me personally, it's about the value of changing the narrative around generational wealth. It's about changing who's putting money into companies and starting to bring some diversity into that group, as well as the people who are receiving investment. It's important for that story, but it's also important, I think, as we talked about in the program, that the way that men and women look at things like risk or look at investment is different. And so when you're only ever looking at something the same way, then you're going to get the same result. And I think that through bringing in a more balanced, diversity of thought, for example, whether that be through the people doing the investing or receiving the investing, that we will see a change in some of the types of companies that get investment, things that maybe are looking at the environment or looking at, social enterprise and things that might not traditionally be the hockey stick curve that a lot of investors have been looking for, but can still be very profitable and have a positive impact on our society and our community.
Yeah, I love those points, and I think what I would add to that is, um, you know, entrepreneurs often solve problems that they themselves are experiencing. And I think when you're investing and directing capital to women founders, they're able to grow businesses that are addressing the needs of women, the needs of their communities, and doing so from a different perspective or a different lens. And so I think of that in terms of like folks who are doing amazing innovations in like women's healthcare products, for example, where, as a new mom, very conscious of like the impact of my pump, which has not been really reinvented in a very long time. But there's some amazing women entrepreneurs right now who are deploying like really great engineering innovation to that field, but they don't typically get access to capital to grow their medical device companies in the same way as men. So I think there is something to intentionally directing capital to women that can help create new products and new opportunities in the market. Um, there's another question that's been raised of what does investing your capital into companies that align with your purpose bring to your life that traditional investments may not? And I think this is a great question about, to your point, that the power of that purpose driving your investment strategy.
Yeah, so I think that early in my investment journey, it was very traditional. All of the things that I, maybe learned from my parents or, our RSPs and things of that nature. And I didn't really consider the idea that I could invest in companies because, as I mentioned earlier, I thought that was sort of reserved for high net worth people, and you needed millions of dollars to do that. When I realized that I could get involved, and I thought about my personal values. So, just like when deciding what company I would want to work for, I might think about, what's the culture of the company? What are the values that company stands for? Does that align with who I am as a person? I took that same approach to investing. And I'm a person who really believes you need to put your actions and intention behind, or you need to put intention behind the actions that you are taking. And so if I'm going to talk about diversity of thought, or I'm going to talk about the importance of pay equity and these types of things, I think it's important that I'm putting my investment dollars in those places, and helping to be part of change, even if it's small incremental impact that I have. But I think if everyone were doing that, then you could have a pretty large impact.
Yeah, and I that actually speaks so elegantly to Spring's larger mission, right? Is that we want to see every company as an impact company and every investor as a purpose-led investor. And a lot of the challenges we're seeing in terms of environmental degradation or social inequity are things that social enterprises out there are actively working to address in a way that can be long-term sustainable because they've got a viable revenue model that's matching it. Erin's lifted up the next question from our audience, which is the definition of who is an investor changing? I mean, you mentioned your own internal perception, right? That an investor is, got a certain amount of money or maybe is a certain way. And I'm curious if you see that archetype shifting.
Well, I think that it is shifting. I heard from somebody recently who is in an organization in Ottawa that was part of an angel network of investors. And when she had joined, she was literally the only woman in the room. And now she is one of 30%. So 30% of that angel network group, which I don't remember the exact size, but it was a pretty large investment group out of Ottawa. And so I think you're hearing more and more of that. So that's great. I think that programs like this invite people into the conversation, help to remove barriers, help to simplify the language. The other thing I've realized through this is it's not as complicated as maybe I thought initially to do investing. It's just that there's a lot of words and things and terms, but once you get a handle on it and you really simplify the language, it's not rocket science. And so I think that the people who are investing is changing, and that's great. And I think that we're in the midst of a massive generational wealth transfer from boomers to their heirs. And I think that we'll see a significant amount of money landing in the hands of women as a result of that. I think I read a stat recently that was at like $17 trillion. And so there's an opportunity there for women to really put their dollars and invest alongside of men and see what change can be made.
Yeah, there's actually, there's numerous articles end of last year, early this year that have been speaking about what's being called the great wealth transfer, that for the first time ever, women are actually poised to inherit more capital than men. And, one of the reasons I love the Impact Investor Challenge as this framework is that demystifying that you spoke to of like the terms and the jargon and the things that can serve as barriers to just getting started in the process. One of the guest speakers that we had, Kristen Hull, also spoke to the importance of actually women as your investment advisors in the process as well, right? Because so many women may be inheriting this wealth, but are still giving their decision-making ability over to wealth managers, investment advisors who are still mostly older men. Trustees, for example, are still almost entirely older white men. And so, I think when you can demystify that, you also become a better advocate for yourself in the investment professionals that you're working with, which can have that cascade impact of changing where the focus of your money is going. So Erin lifted up our next question here, which is, if you did have to sum up your Impact Investor Challenge experience in a few words, what would they be?
Oh, in a few words. Enriching is the word that comes to mind. It was an enriching experience, and it led to fulfilling relationships. And that's how I would summarize it.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, the word for me would have been connecting. I think getting to be in community with that cohort was a really powerful experience of connection, both last year and the year before. There's another question coming up of how might we inspire others to join us on this investment journey? I think speaking a bit to this being a movement and not just a one-off experience.
Yeah, so I think the cool thing was also getting connected to other communities beyond spring as well, and so I think it's more listening for opportunities to participate, engage, saying yes to invitations that come our way. Making sure that we share our experience, like doing something like this, or leveraging the different platforms, whether that be a large platform like LinkedIn, or you are just in conversation at dinner with people that you know, sharing that experience, talking about it. I've realized that not only did I not talk a lot about money or investment until maybe the last 5 or 6 years, but a lot of women don't talk about money and finances. And so I think that just getting into the conversation around that, what's possible, sharing experiences of different companies you're learning about, different activities that are happening. There's so many events like here in Vancouver and Toronto as well. Just participating and inviting somebody along. I met someone recently who said every time that they go to an event, they invite someone new who maybe wouldn't normally go to those types of events. And so I've kind of taken that on as well.
Oh, that's a beautiful call to action. I love that, and, there's an intergenerational opportunity there as well. Not only do not just women, but people tend to not talk about finances that much, um, we also often don't talk about it with our children. And there's a real opportunity there, to bring the next generation on the journey as well, especially, given how much, Gen Z is really focused on, a lot of these major environmental and social challenges that they see as being dominant in their lifetime. And so we have another question here. On IWD, we noticed that the room was full of women, which was wonderful. But how do we get more men to help us to get equality in investment?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And so I think that there's a balance. It's not just accepting invitation to challenges that are women putting on events for other women, but also taking invitations or inviting yourself to the party if there are events going on, like the example I gave earlier, where the woman accepted the invitation to the Angel Investing Network. She was the only woman in the room, but now there's 30% women. Well, that happens through osmosis. And I have I've had a lot of male mentors over my years, who have shared their experiences with me and encouraged me. And so inviting them to some of those arenas too, I think, is important. It's about balancing, I think, not like starting to cause separation. And so I think it's important to have women events and women focused events, but also to join our male counterparts as well in the conversation.
Yeah, and I think, to any men in the audience, right, I think having that courage to take that first step to maybe experience what it is like to be the only one in the room, can also build a lot of empathy. And to your earlier point of, like, bringing somebody new along, it is the power of men actually advocating to other men that will be a part of what starts to change this movement, and demystify what it looks like and why it's valuable, to invest not just in women, but in, many, underrepresented entrepreneurs out there. So we have, one final question that I think you've kind of answered actually a couple times, but I think it's good to list it up is, do you need to be super rich to be an investor?
You don't need to be super rich. And I think like the spring program is a perfect example. I think the minimum commitment is $2,500. And you're not only that $2,500 goes towards your investment, but you're also getting exposure to the process and how to do it. So you're learning and doing it at the same time. So you don't have to be super rich to invest. And it's really important that we say that out loud and we talk about it, particularly in the beginning, early stages, where companies are just getting off the ground. That pre-seed stage, the friends and family community coming together to help support a founder. It's they'll take what they can, and it really is about pooling together some money and some support for these founders. And if you believe in what they're doing, and if you believe in the problem that they're trying to solve.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think part of it is also looking at your own risk appetite, right? That, yes, the minimum commitment is pretty low, uh, and it's just kind of looking at that within the context of your entire budget. Because as with any early stage investing, I would be remiss if I didn't say, like, it is a risk, right? And so you kind of have to be prepared. You might not get that money back. And I personally experienced that actually with a couple of my first early angel investments for me and my family was I just deeply believed in a company called Choice, who was helping to deliver reproductive health care in the United States, and was able to make a small $5,000 initial investment. And unfortunately, the company didn't make it. They did end up closing down. But that contribution enabled them to operate for, you know, a year and a half longer than they might have otherwise been able to. And so while no, I don't have the financial return, I still have the fulfillment because it was a social return that I know that they created meaningful impact. They help people access healthcare who otherwise wouldn't have access. And so, yeah, that was worth that money. But I think that that's a question you've got to ask yourself is whether or not that investment is going to still deliver enough of a social and environmental return that even if you don't get the money back, though I think that is part of what we try to say around impact investing is it doesn't have to be a trade-off. And investing in these social enterprises and women is not necessarily any more risky than if you were investing in some guy's new tech startup idea really early, right? Any early stage investing, it has that inherent risk. So we are at time. It is 12:30. Theresa, I want to thank you so much for sharing your perspective and for answering the incredible questions from our audience here today. We're going to wrap up our interview, and for those who are curious to learn more, I'm going to be sharing a bit more context around the Women-Led Impact Investor Challenge and answering questions you may have about the program. Thank you so much, Theresa.
Thank you.
And so as we look at our program here and the Women-Led Impact Investor Challenge, this is a program that is uh, really designed to help you evaluate and vet a large number of companies. And I'm actually going to make myself a little smaller here so that folks can see the slides. So for example, we'll have generally 80 or more companies that will apply. And then the spring team takes on that process of winnowing that down and vetting those companies to the top 15. And then when you join as an investor, you get to learn about those 15, you get to vote, and then with those 5 finalists, you get to dive deeper into a due diligence process where you can learn so much more about their organizations, their leadership team, their financial models, their market possibilities before you choose that number 1 finalist who receives the investment. There are generally 20 to 30 investors who have pre-committed to invest a pool of money that generally comes to about $100,000. Those investors then meet over 9 weekly sessions where they're learning the content, but they're also getting connected to guest speakers and getting to network and build relationship with one another, as Theresa shared about her journey and the importance of building those relationships. And then at the end, there is that single direct investment, but there's so many other winners in the process in terms of being able to learn about these incredible entrepreneurs. And so this is a program that is fundamentally designed to serve investors and individuals who want to use their capital to make a difference in the world. And so if you are a human being who is either accredited Canadian or American investor who wants to learn about investing for good, or if you're a new Canadian investor who isn't accredited but wants to start this investment journey, if you are an entrepreneur who's exited your company and you want to learn how to pay it forward and pay it forward to other diverse founders, or if you're a fund manager or an entrepreneur who wants to learn and relay your insights back into your corporation and their mission. If you're someone who's concerned about the social and environmental challenges that we're facing and you want to make a positive difference. Perhaps you're a young graduate or a new professional who wants to network and learn more about um, investing early so that you can see some of those longer term returns. Or if you're a parent, grandparent, or guardian who is worried about what the world's going to look like for future generations, if any of that sounds like you, then this program could be a really great fit. And so, as you heard Theresa share, there are a lot of reasons to say yes and a lot of reasons to join an Impact Investor Challenge. This is ultimately a hands on training, and this is where you're going to be able to benefit from the high quality deal flow that Spring is able to bring together because of our long standing reputation after 10 years of working in the Canadian impact investing ecosystem. You get to connect with a network of like-minded investors and really connect across all program alumni. Once you've completed the program, you're still connected via our Slack channel Impact Springboard. You get to learn the ins and outs of venture investing and gain that specific lens that we apply when we're looking at impact. You get to meet a number of incredible guest speakers in a very intimate environment, and you get connected to mentors and coaches who are experienced institutional investors or experienced angel investors to build those relationships and have that ongoing mentorship relation beyond the program. And you get to make a difference, while your individual $2,500 might not be sufficient for any one entrepreneur. When that is pulled together as a pooled investment of 100,000, that is actually often a meaningful injection of capital at the beginning stages for an enterprise. So we think that it's a way for you to have much higher leverage or impact with your dollars. And so wanted to thank again Theresa, and sorry if we can go back one slide. Wanted to thank again Theresa for joining us today. You know, Theresa supports purpose-driven organizations. She's a fractional chief operating officer, so she's really seen a lot of the ins and outs of many ventures. She's had over 2 decades of transformative leadership experience across major brands like Target and Gap and Inc. Or Gap and Lululemon. And she actively invests and mentors and volunteers with groups and organizations and is really putting her money where her mouth is in terms of making that difference. And so we were so excited to have her join us for the Women-Led Impact Investor Challenge last fall. So with that, thank you all so much. We're really excited for you to join. If you have other questions about the program, please feel free to add it into the chat. I'm happy to answer those along the way. I'm going to share now a few kind of FAQs or things to know about the program to maybe get ahead of some of those questions. So how does Spring select the companies? So we put a call out. We get a lot of amazing applicants who come in, and what we're really looking at is we're looking at their impact lens. In this case, we're looking for also the composition of the leadership team, right? We're looking for majority female or non-binary identified leadership within the organization. For the stage, when we say pre-seed to seed, that basically means that they haven't raised a significant round of capital yet, which would be considered a Series A. So they're still pretty early. They've got some of that early product market fit, like they might actually be out and in stores or have existing customers, but they haven't scaled yet. And so we do want companies who are trying to raise between 250,000 to 5 million, where the contribution from the cohort can be a meaningful contribution to that round. And so in terms of the investment overview, as we've shared, there's about $100,000 that's invested into the winning company. And this is made through what's called a special purpose vehicle, which is called Spring Holding Co. And that special purpose vehicle is specifically created to support this cohort and to help the entrepreneur have only one investor listed on their cap table. So when they go to raise their later rounds, there's really like one single point of contact through Spring Holding Company. Those terms are set on an individual company basis. And unlike a lot of investment funds or firms, Spring does not take a carry on the investment. So we're not taking a portion of the money that the entrepreneurs make when they raise later rounds or potentially exit. Spring does take, just to be transparent, we do take $5,000 of the committed investment amount, and that is just paying for the lifetime of management of that holding until the company either is acquired or goes public or has some other event where they're bringing cash flow back in. And it's also an opportunity for co-investment pending due diligence by BDC, which is one of the incredible partners we've had on this journey of supporting women-led ventures. And so that's where, once again, your money can be really catalytic. By supporting and joining this program, there are other incredible players in the ecosystem like BDC who can then do follow-on and really inject tremendous impact for those entrepreneurs. And so in terms of the topics we cover, through those 9 weekly sessions, you're gonna learn about applying that gender lens, so the way that investment is different, if you are female presenting. The process that you go through to evaluate an early stage investment deal, what kind of information are you looking for? Finding that right balance, right, of enough information without asking so much that it's a real burden on the entrepreneur. You'll learn about the due diligence process, the questions, the vetting, and all of the information you need to mitigate the risk of making this early stage investment. You'll learn about impact measurement and management. How do you know that this is an organization that is making a meaningful impact in the world? We talk a bit about financial modeling, so you can look at those financial statements and be able to make well-informed decisions. We also cover negotiation and valuation because that is that dialogue process that happens between the investors and the entrepreneurs to get to that final term sheet, to get to that final deal. And then we also cover post-investment considerations. So what do you need to know on an ongoing basis now that you are in this long-term relationship with the entrepreneur to continue to set that team and that organization up for success? And so it's important for you to understand what, we've thrown a few numbers out to you. So here's a little bit more about the program cost. There is a one-time program fee. This covers the administration, the legal support, and the course fee that's associated with being in the program. Our incredible facilitators and all of the work that goes in. And that's $500 plus GST. And then thanks to our incredible colleague Nema, who's one of the facilitators, we have an Investy Bestie deal. There is a chance for you to bring a friend and be able to pay half off. And so to Theresa's point of how do you make this a movement, invite somebody new along, and we are happy to provide a great discount on that. And then you'll make an investment commitment. If you are not an accredited investor, that commitment is $2,500. If you're an accredited investor, that commitment is $10,000. And that pooled capital is what gets us to that $100,000 investment into the finalist. And then investor alumni can join any future Impact Investor Challenges without the program fee. So you still make that that program commitment of the investment, but the fee is waived for you in the future. And you can also contact us if you are an experienced investor. We have a low touch experience where you don't need to attend quite so many sessions. And maybe you have some limited time, but you do want to benefit from the due diligence and the vetting and the incredible network effects that we're able to activate through this program. And this is, I'm going to make this one even bigger so that folks can see I guess I can't make it bigger, so that folks can see the journey here. So right now, there is the process of going through the founder orientation and preparation. We've gotten incredible applicants. We're going to go through that final selection in April through June, and that is also when the core programming will happen. So now is the time to register. If you want to join this cohort this spring, this is a great opportunity. If you're looking for a sign, here it is. And then this is going to be your chance to join this upcoming cohort. We'll have our demo day in June. Registration does close on March 27th. So you've got just a little bit more time here, one more week. And we're, of course, always happy to chat with you if you are curious about learning more. Our team is happy to connect and answer questions you may have. But we would love to see you in this upcoming cohort. And Erin's also dropped into the chat the list of the incredible top 15 founders who have already been selected for this cohort. They're going through their orientation process right now and some investment readiness training to further manage the risk for the investment and help set them up for success, even if they are not the finalist of this program. And so investor orientation takes place on April 9th, and then April 23rd and 30th, we'll have the top 15 question and answers with the investor cohort. And that final pitch finale event is June 12th. Even if you are not in the cohort, we'd love to see you on June 12th. It's an incredible opportunity to see the amazing finalists. We actually have a finale coming up for another program tomorrow. This is just a brilliant way to get to meet those top 5 founders and hear more about their impacts, and also often hear from some incredible guest speakers. So we do have a few frequently asked questions, and so the accredited so we're happy to answer these in terms of if you have any of these questions, you can reach out to the team. They're happy to walk through with you on that. But we really are, once again, we are at time. So we are so grateful that you've made the time today to hear from Theresa, to hear from us. And we really hope to see you in our upcoming Impact Investor Challenge. Thank you so much.